Before this night moves 1 minute further, there is something you need to understand. The person who has been trying so hard to remain silent has reached the moment when silence hurts more than speaking. They have opened your conversation more than once today. They have typed words, erased them, locked their phone, and walked away only to return moments later with their heart beating harder than before. Something has changed inside them, and now they want to talk to you. Not someday. Not when life becomes easier. Right now. But what happened that made this moment feel so urgent? It began earlier than you realize, in a place that seemed completely ordinary. The day was moving around them with its familiar noise, the hum of traffic beyond a window, distant voices blending into the background, a clock quietly measuring time they could no longer ignore. They were trying to focus on something simple, something that should have held their attention, when your name appeared unexpectedly in a conversation. No one announced it dramatically. It arrived almost casually, spoken by someone who had no idea how deeply those few syllables would affect them. Yet the moment they heard it, everything else became strangely distant. They did not respond immediately. Their face remained composed, but inside, a door they had carefully kept closed suddenly opened. Memories came rushing through it, not the grand moments they might admit to remembering, but the smaller ones they had never confessed mattered. The way you once paused before saying something honest. The sound of your laughter when you forgot to guard yourself. The quiet strength in your voice during a moment when you were carrying more than anyone knew. They remembered details they had told themselves were insignificant. Why, then, had those details stayed so clear? Someone near them noticed the change. You went quiet, the person said. Your soulmate looked down, pretending to be distracted. I'm fine. But the answer came too quickly, and both of them knew it. The other person did not challenge them at first. They allowed a few seconds of silence to pass, the kind of silence that makes hidden feelings louder. Then they asked a question your soulmate was not prepared to hear. If you could speak honestly to them right now, what would you say? That question did not merely surprise them. It exposed them. For months, perhaps longer, they had found reasons to postpone this exact moment. They had blamed timing, uncertainty, pride, fear of misunderstanding, and circumstances beyond their control. Some of those reasons were real. Others were walls built to protect a heart that had already been touched. But now, sitting there with someone waiting for an answer, they realized something unsettling. They knew exactly what they wanted to say. Still, they did not say it aloud. Instead, they stood and walked toward the nearest window. Outside, the sky was changing. Evening light rested across rooftops and glass, turning ordinary buildings into silhouettes edged with gold. They watched people below moving toward places where they were expected. Everyone seemed to know where they were going. Your soulmate felt as though they had been standing at the same emotional crossroads for far too long, waiting for a sign that would remove every risk. But no sign could make vulnerability painless. No perfect moment could guarantee the outcome they hoped for. Behind them, the person spoke again. You know, they may think you don't care. That sentence struck harder than the first question. Your soulmate turned around slowly. Why would they think that? Because people can't always feel what you refuse to show. For a moment, there was no defense. No clever answer. Your soulmate had believed their feelings were obvious through the pauses, the unfinished conversations, the way they returned after distance, the concern hidden inside ordinary questions. They thought perhaps you could read what they had been unable to express. But suddenly they saw the situation through your eyes. They imagined you lying awake, wondering why someone who felt so close could behave so far away. They imagined you questioning whether the connection had been real or whether you had carried its meaning alone. That realization altered the entire energy of the day. They left the room earlier than expected. As they moved through the hallway, each footstep seemed to carry the weight of an unfinished sentence. They reached for their phone before they even reached the door. Your name was there, familiar and quietly powerful. Their thumb hovered over it. This time, they did not close the screen immediately. They opened your messages and scrolled upward. The conversation held a history neither of you had fully explained. There were warm exchanges that ended too soon, questions that deserved more honest answers, and moments when one of you had reached out while the other was too guarded to respond properly. Your soulmate paused at one particular message from you. It was not dramatic. You had written something gentle, perhaps even simple, but now they recognized what had been hidden within it. You had left the door open without demanding that they walk through it. They read the message again. Then again. A feeling rose inside them that was not only longing. It was regret. Not regret for caring about you. Never that. It was regret for every moment they acted as though there would always be more time. They remembered occasions when they almost told you the truth but changed the subject. They remembered standing near you, feeling words gather in their chest, then allowing the moment to pass because your presence made the possibility of losing you feel too real. They had mistaken restraint for wisdom. Now they were beginning to understand that silence could create the very loss they were trying to avoid. Outside, the air had cooled. A breeze moved through the street, carrying the scent of rain even though the clouds had not yet opened. Your soulmate walked without deciding where to go. They needed movement because standing still made the truth feel too sharp. At a crosswalk, they looked up and saw two people on the opposite side laughing together. One reached for the other's hand with such natural certainty that your soulmate had to look away. They were not jealous of those strangers. They were grieving the ease they wished they had allowed themselves with you. Then their phone vibrated. For one breathtaking second, they thought it might be you. It was not. It was the same person from earlier, sending only one message: do not let fear answer for you again. Your soulmate stopped walking. Those words followed them through the next several minutes. Fear had answered for them many times. Fear had made them appear indifferent when they were overwhelmed. Fear had made them delay a conversation they replayed privately almost every night. Fear had convinced them that waiting was safer than risking rejection. But as they stood beneath the deepening sky, a different question entered their mind. What if waiting had become the greater risk? They found a quiet place away from the noise, a small bench near a tree moving gently in the wind, or perhaps the corner of a dim cafe where no one paid attention to them. The exact place mattered less than what happened there. They opened their phone and began typing. I need to talk to you. They stared at the sentence. It was honest, but it felt too abrupt. They erased it. There's something I should have told you a long time ago. They read it twice. It revealed too much too quickly. They erased that too. I hope I'm not too late. That one remained on the screen longer. Their breathing changed as they imagined you receiving it. Would your heart leap, or would you protect yourself by becoming cautious? Would you answer immediately, or would you need time? Would you believe the sincerity behind those words after so much uncertainty? Your soulmate realized they had no right to control your response. They could only control whether they finally offered you the truth. Yet just before pressing send, another memory surfaced. It was a moment you may not even know they remember. You had been speaking about something personal, perhaps a disappointment you tried to make sound smaller than it was. You smiled while talking, but your eyes told a different story. Your soulmate had wanted to comfort you. They had wanted to say, "You do not have to pretend with me." Instead, they remained careful, afraid that tenderness might reveal too much. Later that night, they had replayed your expression and wished they had been braver. Now they understood that the message they wanted to send was not only about their feelings. It was also an apology for all the times they saw your heart asking for honesty and answered with hesitation. Their fingers returned to the screen. They typed slowly this time. I know I have been difficult to understand. There is a reason, but it is not the reason you may think. I never stayed quiet because you meant too little. I stayed quiet because you began to mean more than I knew how to handle. They stopped. The words looked almost alive in front of them. For the first time, they had written the truth without hiding it behind humor, vague language, or careful distance. Their chest tightened, but beneath the nervousness was a strange relief. The truth was frightening, yet it also felt like coming up for air after remaining underwater too long. Still, they did not send it. Something remained unsaid. They looked around the quiet room, noticing details with unusual clarity: the reflection of light against a cup, the soft scrape of a chair across the floor, a song playing so faintly they could not make out the lyrics. Time seemed suspended while they searched for the words that had followed them for weeks. Then they remembered what happened the previous night. This is the part they have not told anyone. They had dreamed of you. Not a confusing dream filled with impossible scenes, but one so simple and vivid that waking from it left them shaken. In the dream, you were standing across from them in a familiar place. Your face was calm, but there was sadness in your eyes. You did not accuse them. You did not ask why they had taken so long. You only said, "I cannot keep waiting for words you may never choose to speak." Then you turned and walked away. Your soulmate tried to call your name, but no sound came from their mouth. They tried to move, but their feet would not follow. The distance between you increased until the entire scene disappeared into a pale morning light. They woke suddenly, reaching toward an empty room. For several minutes, they lay completely still, listening to the silence. It was only a dream, yet the feeling remained. Not as a prediction, not as a warning from beyond, but as a reflection of what their own heart already knew. They were terrified that one day you would stop hoping. That was why hearing your name today affected them so deeply. That was why the question, "What would you say if you could speak honestly?" felt impossible to avoid. The dream had weakened the walls, and the conversation had brought them down. Your soulmate returned to the message and added another line. I do not know what you believe about us anymore, but I need you to hear the truth from me before silence decides our future. Their thumb hovered above the send button. Then something unexpected happened. A new notification appeared at the top of the screen. It was connected to you. Perhaps you had posted something, changed something, or shared a few words that were not directly addressed to them. Whatever it was, your soulmate immediately felt that it carried a meaning they could not ignore. The word suggested movement. Change. A decision to stop holding on to what would not meet you halfway. They read it once, and the color drained from their face. Had you finally decided to release them? The possibility created a sudden clarity. They no longer cared about appearing composed. They no longer cared whether reaching out made them vulnerable. The fear of saying too much was replaced by the fear of leaving the most important truth unsaid. They stood so quickly that the chair moved behind them. The message they had written was still waiting, but now it no longer felt complete. There was one final truth they had avoided because speaking it would change everything between you. It was the reason they had been drawn back to you after every attempt to move on. It was the reason other connections felt strangely incomplete. It was the reason your absence had a presence of its own. They began typing again, no longer erasing each sentence. I need to talk to you right now, because something happened today that made me see how much my silence may have hurt you. There is something you deserve to know. I tried to convince myself that what I felt would fade if I gave it enough time, but it did not fade. It became clearer. And I am afraid that if I wait any longer, I may lose the chance to tell you that. Their hands became still. The final words were the most important ones. They had never written them before. They had barely allowed themselves to think them without resistance. But now those words were there, forming slowly, one after another, carrying the power to either reopen your connection or close its door forever. Your soulmate looked at the clock. Then at your name. Then back at the unfinished message. And just as they finally typed the confession they had hidden from you all this time, their phone began to ring. The name appearing on the screen was yours. My beloved child. For one suspended heartbeat, everything around them disappeared. The sounds of the room faded. The unfinished message on the screen no longer mattered. Even the questions that had followed them for so long became strangely quiet. There was only one thing left in the world: the name glowing across their phone. Yours. Their heart pounded so loudly they wondered if they had imagined the call. Their fingers trembled as they reached toward the screen. They had spent countless moments wondering what they would do if this opportunity ever came. They had rehearsed conversations in their mind, prepared speeches they never delivered, and imagined every possible outcome. Yet when the moment finally arrived, they realized no rehearsal could prepare a heart for genuine honesty. They answered. For the first few seconds, neither of you spoke. The silence was not awkward. It carried years of unfinished thoughts, hidden hopes, and emotions that words had failed to hold. Sometimes the deepest conversations begin before a single sentence is spoken. Finally, your voice broke the quiet. I wasn't sure if you would answer." Those simple words settled deeply within them. They closed their eyes for a moment, realizing how much uncertainty you had quietly carried. They had never intended to make you question your place in their heart, yet their hesitation had unintentionally created distance where they had longed for closeness. "I'm sorry," they whispered. Not as a quick apology meant to smooth things over, but as the beginning of complete honesty. "I've wanted to say that for a long time." You remained silent, allowing them the space they had needed all along. They took a slow breath. "I kept convincing myself that I needed more time. I thought if I waited until everything made perfect sense, then I could finally explain how I felt. But every day I waited, I only made things harder for both of us." The words flowed more naturally now. "I wasn't protecting myself anymore. I was hiding." There was another quiet pause. Then you asked the question they had secretly feared. "Was I ever important to you?" The question was gentle. There was no accusation. No anger. Only quiet vulnerability. And that made it impossible to answer with anything except the truth. They smiled through unexpected tears. "You've been important for much longer than you know." The admission lifted a weight they had carried alone. I remembered everything. The little conversations. The way you encouraged people without expecting anything back. The moments you smiled even when I could tell life wasn't easy. I remembered all of it. They laughed softly. I tried very hard not to. For the first time in what felt like forever, both of you shared the same quiet laugh. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was healing. The kind of laughter that gently closes old wounds without pretending they never existed. You asked another question. "If you felt all of this, why didn't you tell me?" They looked toward the evening sky outside the window. Clouds were slowly drifting apart, allowing warm light to spread across the horizon. "I thought love had to arrive perfectly." They shook their head. "But real love isn't perfect timing. It's imperfect people choosing honesty before fear steals another day." Those words surprised even them. Because they were no longer speaking from rehearsed thoughts. They were finally speaking from their heart. You listened quietly. Then your own truth began to emerge. "I thought maybe you stopped caring." Those words hurt. Not because they were unfair. Because they understood exactly why you believed them. "I'm sorry you ever felt that way." They paused. "I can't change yesterday. But I don't want yesterday deciding tomorrow." A gentle breeze moved through the open window. Somewhere nearby, birds crossed the evening sky on their journey home. Everything around them seemed to whisper the same quiet reminder. Life keeps moving. Hearts must decide whether to move with it. You both began remembering moments that once felt ordinary but now carried unexpected meaning. The conversation where neither of you wanted to say goodbye. The message one of you reread more times than anyone would ever admit. The smile that lasted longer than either of you realized. The concern hidden inside casual questions. The hope disguised as friendship. Little by little, you discovered that while both of you had experienced the same emotions, each believed they were carrying them alone. The misunderstanding had never been the absence of feeling. It had been the absence of courage. As the conversation continued, something beautiful happened. Neither of you tried to erase the past. Neither of you pretended mistakes had never happened. Instead, you honored them. Because every misunderstanding had quietly taught patience. Every season of silence had revealed what truly mattered. Every unanswered question had eventually guided both hearts toward greater honesty. Sometimes healing does not arrive because the past changes. It arrives because two people finally stop hiding from the truth. Your soulmate smiled. There was something I was about to send you before you called. What was it? They looked at the unfinished message still glowing on the screen. I told you I had spent so much time trying to convince myself my feelings would disappear. They laughed softly. I was wrong. You smiled on the other end. I think I already knew. Another peaceful silence followed. This one felt completely different. Not empty. Comfortable. Safe. The kind of silence shared by two hearts that no longer feel the need to protect themselves from one another. The urgency that had filled the beginning of this story slowly transformed into something far more beautiful. Peace. Not because every answer had appeared overnight. Not because every challenge had vanished. But because honesty had finally replaced uncertainty. Fear no longer held the conversation hostage. Hope had quietly taken its place. My beloved child, this story is a work of inspirational fiction, yet its heart carries a timeless reminder. The strongest connections are rarely built through perfect words. They grow through sincerity. Through humility. Through the willingness to listen as deeply as we wish to be understood. Whether you are waiting for reconciliation, a heartfelt conversation, or simply the courage to express what has long remained inside your heart, remember this. Love flourishes where honesty is welcomed. Kindness softens what pride cannot. And every new day offers another opportunity to choose understanding over assumption. Never underestimate the quiet strength of a gentle conversation. Sometimes one honest sentence can accomplish what years of silence never could. As night settles peacefully around you, may your heart be filled with calm instead of worry, hope instead of doubt, and quiet confidence instead of fear. May you find wisdom in the moments that ask you to be patient. May you find courage when truth needs your voice. May compassion guide every conversation that matters. And may genuine love, wherever it is meant to grow, be rooted in honesty, mutual respect, and grace. Thank you for spending these moments on this inspiring journey. If this fictional story touched your heart, brought you comfort, or gave you something meaningful to reflect on, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need a little hope today. Until we meet again, may peace surround your steps, light fill your path, and countless blessings accompany every tomorrow.